Good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, June 19th, 2018, and this is the second hearing of the month for the City of Tempe Hearing Officer. My name is Vanessa McDonald, and I'm conducting this afternoon's hearing. I have something I'm going to go ahead and read into the record before we go ahead and start with our agenda. The City of Tempe Hearing Officer is authorized by the Arizona Revised Statutes and the City of Tempe Zoning and Development Code. The hearing officer has the duty to carry out both the provisions and the intent of the general plan and the zoning and development code. The hearing officer is granted the authority to conduct public hearings to review and either approve, deny, continue, or approve with conditions any of the following applications: use permits, variances, and property abatements. On today's agenda, we have 6 items. We have a set of minutes, we have 4 use permit requests, and then a review of compliance with conditions from a use permit that was previously granted. As the hearing officer, I carefully review the City of Tempe Community Development Department report that's given to me prior to this hearing. I use this to study the cases. Additionally, I drive by each of the development sites, so I have a good understanding of the context that a proposed development sits in. To applicants and interested citizens, when it's time for you to approach the podium, and I'll let you know when it's time, if you can just step up to the podium and state your name and city of residence. You don't have to give us your home address or anything. The name and city is sufficient. Any person who is aggrieved or does not like a decision that's rendered today can file an appeal within 14 calendar days after the hearing officer has made a decision. As such, the deadline for filing an appeal of any decision rendered today is 3 p.m. on July 3rd, 2018. And appeals from the hearing officer go to either the Development Review Commission or Board of Adjustment, depending on the type of request being appealed. There is a small fee to do that, and you can work with staff if you're interested in making an appeal, and they will help you get that done. And in the case of a property abatement, the property owner has 14 days to either file an appeal of the abatement or bring the property into compliance. If neither of these things happen within the 2-week period, then the same July 3rd deadline applies and the property will be abated by the city. To make a few introductions, joining me this afternoon from Community Development are Drew Yoakum, Cindy Jared, Lee Jimenez, Dalton Guerra, and Suparna Dasgupta. So now that I can dispense with that, that brings us to agenda item number 1. This is a set of minutes from the hearing that was held on June 5th, 2018. I've gone through the minutes in the packet, and I think that they accurately reflect what took place at that hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and approve the minutes for June 5th, 2018. This brings us to our agenda item number 2. This is a request by the city to approve or to abate public nuisance items at the Bo Song property, and there is another name. I wonder if they're going to put it up on the screen so that they can see the full name of the case. It's for a property located at 2244 East Apache Boulevard. The applicant is the City of Tempe, and it is a request for a 180-day abatement period. Mr. White.
Good afternoon. My name is Marvin White, Code Inspector of the City of Tempe. I'm here today to request a 180-day abatement for this property. This particular property has been a problem for us in the past. We have abated the property approximately 3 years ago for the same problems of overgrown weeds, debris, trash, graffiti, unsecured buildings. It has become a blight for the surrounding area and a problem for us in general. I did go by again and inspect the property today one more time to make sure to see if it's in compliance. It's not in compliance, it actually gotten worse.
Okay. So from the exhibits that I was given, even since then, which was just last week, no action has been taken on the property?
I just noticed a couple of the graffiti, parts where graffiti were on were removed, but there's still graffiti remaining.
Right.
And
And
I do
deteriorated
have fresh,
landscape.
and I do have fresh pictures if you'd
Oh,
like
sure,
to see.
yeah. Go ahead and put them up. No, it goes face up. Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. There we go. As you can see, the unsecured building, gone weeds, and it's here, the unsecured building here. They pulled off some of the wood there. You see the overgrown weeds and debris there. Here, you can see a lot of the weeds, debris, things of that nature.
Right.
Also,
So nothing's changed. I drove by the site, I think, on Saturday.
yeah, nothing's
So
changed.
nothing.
And of course, here you can see the graffiti here
Yeah.
along this whole entire wall.
So, okay, well, as I mentioned previously, I do drive by each of the sites on the agenda, and I drove by the site on the weekend. I agree with your assessment that it needs to be abated. Is the property owner here by any chance this afternoon? I don't think so, because you mentioned you had difficulties in
Yeah,
getting.
we made numerous attempts by correspondence, by phone, also by email,
Okay.
with no response, and the correspondence has come back unable to deliver.
Okay. Thank you. I don't think I have any other
Thank you.
questions of you. Is there a member of the public here by any chance wanting to speak on agenda item number 2? I don't see anyone, so I'm going to go ahead and approve the 180-day open abatement for this property located at 2244 East Apache Boulevard. Thank you.
Hearing Officer McDonald, just before you go to the next agenda item, the applicant for number 4 is requesting if you are able to move that agenda item to the bottom. He's waiting for his contractor to show up
Oh,
at the
okay.
meeting.
So just move it back.
Please, if you don't
So
mind.
we're on agenda item number 3,
Right.
and then I'll take 5 and 6 and then 4.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. This brings us to agenda item number 3. This is a request for approval for a use permit to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked in the required front yard setback for the Garcia residence. This is located at 1125 East Bishop Drive. Mr. Guerra.
Good evening, Hearing Officer McDonald. Dalton Guerra, Community Development Department, Planning Division. The Garcia residence is located on Lot 174 of the Hughes Acres Unit 2 subdivision, located south of Broadway Road and east of Rural Road in the R1-6 Single Family Residential District. The applicant, Patrick Garcia, is requesting a use permit to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked in the required front yard setback. You can see there on the site plan where the proposed parking space is in the front yard setback.
Mm-hmm. Great.
To date, staff has received 3 phone calls, 2 in opposition and 1 in support. The 2 phone calls that were in opposition expressed concern that the approval of this use permit will set precedent for future property owners to go after the same use permit to park a recreational vehicle in the front yard setback. One caller stated that he doesn't want the neighborhood to end up looking like a trailer park if all these use permits get approved to allow recreational vehicles in the front yard. He's also concerned that the people will use the recreational vehicles as living spaces in the front yard setback.
Okay.
The one caller in support of the project stated that the recreational vehicle being parked in the front yard did not bother her, and that the property owner does a good job of keeping the front yard clean and the RV clean as well.
Okay.
Based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff cannot support approval of the requested use permit.
Okay. We have an exhibit, and I believe this was provided by the property owner, if we can zero in.
I also have site photos if that will help at all.
Do you have like an aerial from the county assessor's website by any chance showing the property lines?
Thank you for your patience.
Here we go. The reason why I asked for this exhibit is, unlike the hand-drawn exhibit that we had previously, where the property owner indicated where the RV was parked and where the sidewalk is, I think it's a common misperception among homeowners here in the valley that their property line does not start at the back of the sidewalk. It actually is much farther into the property, and so it's not the mere fact that the RV is being parked where it is, but it's creating a circumstance where it's being parked within the public right-of-way that's problematic to the city. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Based on the county assessor's website here, it looks like it's approximately 5 to 6 feet beyond the property line,
Right.
the front property line.
The trailer itself,
Yeah,
yes.
correct.
Yeah, because that property line, people go about their day-to-day business, and unfortunately, they're required to pay to water the grass and turf and everything up to that sidewalk, when in fact, they don't really own it. So the request is to allow us to basically set aside that requirement that there be no parking within the public right-of-way. So I just wanted to clarify that, because it's a nuance that's important to this case.
Correct.
Thank you. I don't think I have any other questions of staff, but I'm going to have the property owner come up and answer some questions or provide me with some more information, if you can just be available for
No problem.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is the property owner here this afternoon?
Good afternoon.
Thank you. If you can state your name, city of residence. I assume you're Mr.
Patrick Garcia. I live at 1125 East Bishop Drive, Tempe, Arizona.
Thank you.
Just wanted to premise this with I'm a Arizona resident. I've lived at the property for probably about 26 years. Outdoorsman, so I hunt, fish, camp. I'm not using the trailer for an extended family or anything. The only reason I bought a larger one is to try to incorporate the family, because I have daughters, a wife, and anybody that's gone camping, you know that women don't like to go in the forest. So you have to buy something a little bit larger with a toilet and shower and whatnot. So I did. I've had it for roughly about 9 years, and it's been parked there for about 9 years. The only reason I don't park it further back is because the height of it hits my overhang, and I would have to saw off probably about 3 feet inward because of the overhang comes down before it starts the pitch, and about a foot in to actually get it back into the RV section. The reason I bought this house is because of the fact that it had RV parking. That was the reason I purchased this house when I did, so that I could incorporate or park an RV there.
By RV parking, do you mean that you thought
An extra slab.
the extended slab?
The extended slab,
serve,
right.
right.
Because at the time I had a smaller pop-up trailer that my father and myself used. But like I said, since then, and just a little bit about me, family, single income family, have 4 children, and obviously a wife. So, you know, I mean, I know when I went to zoning and asked, you know, what I could do, and obviously the gal's going, well, why don't you just simply park it in the back? Well, it costs to try and break down a wall and try to figure out how to get that back there. And on top of that, as I said, I've lived here 26 years. I've seen all the residents leave. I've seen the houses go rental. I have had to deal with frat houses, and I have considered moving on several occasions. I like Tempe. It's a nice community. I've tried to keep it as such. I call on constant issues, crime. I'm a public servant myself. So, you know, I try to enhance the neighborhood, not try and bring it down. And like I said, the decision to stay has been because of the nice area. This, you know, I'm not trying to say anything badly, but this may sway me to go the other direction and just keep it as a rental. And because I've seen that happen, and the people don't care about the homes, and they let them go to hell in a handbag. Like I said, I've had to deal with all of the residents around me, the same thing, back and front, or back, front, side. You know, luckily I've had some good neighbors move in. We have one back here that came. But for the most part, they're mostly all rentals. What else? As I said, I'm just kind of asking for to have the RV remain where it's at. It's not blocking anybody's view. It doesn't inhibit anybody from walking on a sidewalk. It doesn't block anybody's vision. It doesn't inhibit the other person's driveway. But whoever purchased the house next door to me, I still don't know what they're going to do with that. I don't know if it's going to turn into a frat house, an R&B, or what is it, the Airbnb or whatever they call that now. I don't know what it's going to turn into. I'm a little afraid right now because I don't know. And those are the kind of things that I'm dealing with, personally, living there. So this would help me to possibly stay and, you know, maybe expand my house instead of move. It's just, again, one of those day-to-day living things that I hope all of you can understand.
The length of the trailer is 30 feet, correct?
Correct. It's a 21-foot trailer, living 21-foot with a 10-foot deck, like for ATVs. Usually
That deck is welded on, correct?
It's
Or-
part of the whole. It's like a
Right.
frame type thing. It's not something that I can remove.
You can't remove it.
No, no. And that's yet part of it, and that's, well, like I said, and that's a kind of a flat deck, so you can clearly see over it, so it doesn't, you know, it's not like the trailer's, it's a big trailer all the way out to the sidewalk, as far as like blocking anybody's view or something like that. And I do use it a lot. I mean, like I said, I hunt, fish every year, take the family camping, and like I said, in no way means I don't let anybody live in it. No extended family living in it. It's strictly for recreational use. Yes. So, I guess that's about it. I hope you guys have it in your heart to grant me the permit, so that I can, you know, continue to keep it. Otherwise, I may have to. I don't have any place to store it. I may have to, if I'm not given a permit, I may have to get rid of it, and that would kind of quash like my kid's first deer hunt this year, in October. You know, because I really, like I said, I don't have anywhere else to put the thing. So, and I can't afford to store it anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is there a member of the public here wanting to speak?
Just one last thing.
Okay.
I do have a letter from my neighbor across the street.
Oh, good.
And we filled out a little thing for him here. He's my next door neighbor right across the street from me.
Okay. And I saw two hands go up, so I'll hear from both of you. Have you filled out a white speaker card in the back of the chamber? You, sir, you have your speaker card, so I'll go ahead and take you first. In the meantime, I'm just going to quickly read this letter that was just handed to me into the public record. This is from a gentleman named Ronald Brinkman. He lives across the street from the Garcia residence, and he's lived there since September 2007. The trailer parked on the west side of the lot has in no way negatively impacted his family, and he recommends granting the Garcia family their request to park the trailer as currently positioned. And again, that's Ronald Brinkman from 1126 East Bishop Drive. Thank you. And so you must be James Wasson?
Correct.
Thank you. Mr. Wasson.
James Wasson, Tempe, Arizona. I live right next door to Mr. Garcia and his wife, and at 1131. And we've been there now 10 years, and we really appreciate that they're a homeowner in the area. As he mentioned, we're the few that own and actually live in our homes. And I would like to support his getting a use permit. I've never had an issue with his vehicle being there. In fact, I think it's great that he takes his family out, his boys and his girls, to experience the outdoors and use this facility, this vehicle, and would fully support his issuance of a use permit. And I hope that'll be the case.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, go ahead and come on up. And if you can just hand your speaker card to a staff member and then state your name and city of residence.
My name is Robert Gray. I live on the corner of Dorsey and Bishop, right down the street. I've never met this neighbor, but I walk my dog around this block almost every night.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a problem with this trailer there. In fact, I know one of the callers said that they think it looks trashy. Actually, I think it improves the neighborhood, having these nice RVs. It's well kept. I've never seen spider webs on it. I think it's an enhancement for the neighborhoods to see, look, not only do we have nice houses, but we have the ability to go out and enjoy the forest around us. So I'm in favor of him having a permit, and I hope that you don't make him move it. So
Okay.
that's it.
Thank you. Staff, did you have anything that you wanted to add to the request?
Yes, Hearing Officer McDonald. Just want to go over some of the reasons that we were recommending denial. One, the lack of compatibility with the surrounding area, which in turn could potentially contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or the downgrading of property values. Also, the potential for people living out of the recreational vehicles parked in the front yard setback. It could create a nuisance for the surrounding area if it's not handled properly or controlled properly by the property owner.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see any more individuals who are here this afternoon wanting to speak, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of this hearing. These are always very tough requests because, I understand you, Mr. Garcia, is the homeowner, and I appreciate everything that you said, and I appreciate your longevity here in Tempe and your home ownership. But when I'm given a use permit case, there is criteria that I have to look at in the code. And one of the things, just to back up a little bit, one of the things that I read at the very beginning of the hearing is that I have a duty as the hearing officer to look at the intent and the what the zoning and development code actually says. I have a heart. I empathize and sympathize, with homeowners that come in front of me, but I also have a responsibility and a duty to implement the zoning and development code. When I was looking at this case, when I drove by the property, one of the things that I wanted to do was educate myself on the code requirements for getting a use permit to park within a front yard setback. And I referenced the ZDC section 4-602, which says an RV exceeding 21 feet in length shall not be parked in the required front yard building setback except for periods of up to 48 hours within 7 consecutive days for the purpose of loading, unloading, and cleaning. And such vehicles that are stored within the defined setback. So you could have a vehicle over 21 feet as long as it was pushed and cleared that public right-of-way that I mentioned earlier. You could get that subject to a use permit, but in my view, I don't even know that I have the authority to grant you a use permit to park in the public right-of-way. I know it's your property, I know visually it looks like it's your property, but according to the zoning and development code and the county assessor's website and other legal documents, that is the public right-of-way, and we can't allow parking in your public right-of-way any more than we can, in other areas around the city. We're required to keep them clear of obstructions. So that being said, there's also the use permit criteria. So again, I'm not even sure that I would have the authority to grant it, but let's assume for a moment that I do. The use permit criteria, 3 of them I think this application meets easily. It's not going to create a significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. It's not going to create a nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare, and that you would have control of behavior both inside and outside the RV. But it's the other 2 that are problematic for me, which are, would this contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrade property values, and is it compatible with existing surrounding structures and uses? As staff has pointed out, there are no other use permits that have been granted for a similar situation in your part of Tempe. And I know they do or perform due diligence when they're looking at a case like this, and they take a pretty broad radius. And so that's a good indicator, if no one else is doing this, if no one else has a use permit, that it's not compatible with existing structures and uses. And the potential for contribution to the deterioration of the neighborhood. It's a precedent-setting thing. If all of a sudden a lot of people started to store their RVs on their properties, it would create a lot of visual clutter in the area. And it's something that we just, as a city, through the adoption of our ordinance, has decided that we don't want to occur in our neighborhood. So given those 2 criteria and the fact that I don't believe really that I even have the authority to grant this use permit to begin with, I am going to follow staff's recommendation and deny your application contained in PL 180159. Now, I do want to point out to you, sir, that as I stated at the beginning of the hearing, you do have an appeal right. You can appeal this decision rendered today. It would be appealed to the Development Review Commission, and staff could help you do that. But there is that 2-week deadline. You would have to file your appeal before July 3rd, 2018. So thank you for coming today, and a staff member, I'm sure Dalton would be willing to speak with you after the hearing if you have anything else. Thank you. We are now moving on to agenda item number 5. Since we're skipping over agenda item number 4, we're waiting for someone. This is a review of conditions of approval, of compliance with conditions of approval for a use permit to allow a massage establishment at Gracefoot Reflexology located at 6456 South Rural Road. The applicant is Kevin Wu, and this is a use permit that I granted actually in January of last year that I put a stipulation on that we wanted to get the business open see how they operated as a business, see how they complied with their conditions of approval. And we said, within a year, you'll come back and we can review the conditions. So, Mr. Jimenez.
Good evening, Hearing Officer McDonald. Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Department in the Planning Division. So Grace Reflexology operates a reflexology business in the Marcos Deniza Plaza located on the southwest corner of East Guadalupe Road and South Rural Road in the PCC1 Planned Commercial Center Neighborhood District. As you recall, at the hearing held on January 3rd, 2017, you were the hearing officer at the time who approved the use permit to allow a massage establishment. The approval conditioned that the operator return to a hearing for review of compliance with the assigned conditions of approval at least 6 months after operating. Since the use permit became effective, there have been no police calls for service, nor complaints, commercial complaints, have been received against the applicant. To date, one phone inquiry was received by staff, and also one email was also provided this afternoon from a member of the neighborhood who was opposed. However, she was confused. She thought this was a new use permit for a massage establishment. However, I responded and explained to her that this was just a compliance review.
Okay,
And
yeah, and just because I want to read that
Sure.
into the record, I was given just prior to this meeting, an email from Judy Summers, and she lives here in Tempe and lives close to this application. And she was writing in opposition to the request, but as you just stated, she was under the misconception that it was for a new business. She, I guess, was previously in opposition, but perhaps was unaware that the business had been operating already, and so she thought it was a new use and objected to it in that regard. So, but not based on any behavior or compliance with conditions by the property owner, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So based on the information that's been provided by the operator and the police input and that's been received, staff supports the continuation of the approved use permit and believes that the operation conforms to the required criteria and is in compliance with the conditions of approval. And
Great.
I'll be available should you have any questions.
Thank you. Is the property owner here this afternoon or a representative from Grace
It
Foot
doesn't appear.
Reflexology?
They don't appear to be
I don't
here.
think so, but you know what? In most cases, if it were a new application, I would want to insist that the applicant be here. I would probably continue it and make sure that they would come, because I typically need to ask, have you read the conditions of approval and do you agree to abide by them? Clearly, this applicant does, because they've been operating now for a long time with no issues whatsoever. So based on staff's recommendation and the fact that the one public input that I've gotten seemed to be, a little confused, I'm going to go ahead and grant the extension of the use permit indefinitely. Thank you. This brings us to agenda item number 6. This is a request for approval for a use permit to allow an amusement business, also called an escape room. This is for Inferno Escape Room, located at 1415 East University Drive, Suite 105.
Good evening, Hearing Officer McDonald. Dalton Guerra, Planning Technician, Planning Division. Inferno Escape Room is proposing to operate in suite number 105 of University Plaza, located south of East University Drive and west of South McClintock Drive, within the GID General Industrial District. The applicant explains that the nature of the business is for family entertainment, amusement, and team building experiences. The objective is for participants to solve clues to accomplish a certain task in one of their 3 rooms within 60-minute time limit. The maximum number of occupants for one room is 8 persons. 2 employees will be on hand during any shift, and the proposed hours of operation are from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 12 a.m. or midnight Friday through Sunday. To date, no public input has been received by staff. And based on the information provided by the applicant and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes that the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. I should be here with any questions.
Okay, thank you. I don't think I have any. This is, we've seen a number of these applications come through, so I understand the business model now. I think the first one of these I heard, I couldn't get my head around what an escape room was, and now they're so popular, I understand how they operate. So I don't think I have any questions right now. Is the applicant here this afternoon? Like to come forward and state your name and city of residence?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Moats. I live in Phoenix.
Wonderful. Hopefully you were given a copy of the staff report with all of the conditions of approval. There are 7 conditions of approval for this use permit, which means those are the conditions, like in the previous case, that you agreed to comply with in order for you to get this use permit. Have you read those?
I haven't received them. Rick has been working with us. Did you receive them? We haven't received that
Okay.
list of conditions.
Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just read them off very quickly. Almost all of them are what I would call boilerplate conditions of approval, ones that are attached to nearly every case. So the first one is you'll get a building permit to, when you build out the suite the way you want to, you'll get a permit to that. So, you can't do it without a permit. Your use permit is valid for the plans that you submitted with this application. So I have in my packet attachment 4, attachment 5, your dimensioned floor plan. So you're going to stick to that when you build out your business. Any licenses required, federal, state, county, municipal permits, licenses, tax, numbers, anything of that nature, you will obtain. If there's any complaints from any of the surrounding neighborhoods that the city verifies and deems to be justified, then you would come back. You would be required to come back for a review of the use permit. Any intensification or expansion of the use will require a use permit. So if you say grew so fast that you wanted to knock out a building and take over another suite, you would have to come back to the hearing officer to have that extension of premises for the use permit. Live entertainment would require a separate use permit if you wanted to do that. And you're agreeing that all amusement uses shall take place inside only. It is an escape room, so that's kind of self-evident. And that you won't hold any activities outside the premises. So if you agree with those conditions of approval, I need to get your agreement on the record.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe, do you have anything to add to what Mr. Garrett added?
No, I
About your
think that
case?
covered it. Yep.
Okay, thank you. You can
Thank
take
you.
a seat.
Thank you.
Is there any member of the public wishing to speak on agenda item number 6? I don't see anyone, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the use permit criteria from section 6308 of the code. I don't believe granting this use permit will create a significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. I don't believe it'll create a nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare. I don't believe it'll contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrade property values. I believe it's compatible with existing surrounding structures and uses. I think it's appropriately in the GID district, and again, all of the activities will be interior to the business, which dovetails into the next one, that I think you'll have adequate control of behavior both inside and outside the premises. Therefore, I'm going to approve application PL 180132 for escape room at 1415 East University Drive. Thank you and good luck to you. So we are going backwards now to agenda item number 4. Are you all here now? Okay, perfect. Mr. Jimenez, or I'll introduce the case. This is a request for 2 use permit standards to reduce the required rear and south side yard setbacks by no more than 20%. This is for a sunken ramada for the Calhoun residence located at 11640 South 71st Street. Mr.
Evening.
Jimenez.
Good evening, once again, Lee Jimenez, Senior Planner. The Calhoun residence is located on Lot 3 of the Sailor Estate subdivision, which is near the southwest corner of South 71st Street and East Carver Road in the AG Agricultural District. The applicant, Josh Sherwood of Sherwood Outdoors, is requesting reductions to the required rear and south side yard setbacks to accommodate the construction of a new sunken ramada adjacent to the proposed swimming pool. The ramada will stand 14 feet tall, above grade, and cover 1,032 square feet. Should the use permit standards be approved, the required rear yard setback will be reduced by 7 feet from 35 feet to 28 feet, and the required south side yard setback will be reduced by 4 feet from 20 feet to 16 feet. To date, staff has received 1 phone inquiry. The caller lives south of the Calhoun residence and has no concerns with the use permit standard requests. And based on the information provided by the applicant, the public input received, and the analysis provided in the staff report, staff supports this request and believes the application meets the required criteria and will conform to the conditions provided in the staff report. And just to add, this application did begin as a variance application, wherein they did have a neighborhood meeting on May 19th at 10 a.m. at the Calhoun residence. Staff was unable to attend, but based on the meeting summary, the applicant explained that 4 members from the neighborhood attended, but that no opposition was provided at that meeting. So I just wanted to make a note of that.
Okay, thank you. Can you put an aerial of the site up so we can just orient ourselves to what we're talking about? Because I know this is an irregularly shaped parcel, and you can speak just for a moment to where we're actually talking about encroaching into the setback slightly.
Okay, so this is the proposed ramada and the proposed pool. The way because of this particular lot, it's a cul-de-sac lot and it has 5 sides. The code would define the rear lot line as, what you'll do is you'll take the midpoint of the front property line, take that tangent line, run a perpendicular line to another tangent line at the rear, and you use a 10-foot stretch that you'll connect.
Move that line back and forth.
The west property line and the south property line. So that becomes your rear lot line. And then your rear yard is measured from there. Okay. So if you're looking at the site plan, so this would be the south side yard area. Mm-hmm. This would be the rear yard area, and this is the other side. So the building envelope would be this black dashed line, if you can tell. And then the proposed setback reduction would be the red line shown on the plan here. I can emphasize.
So it's just that little triangle in the corner that we're talking about.
That's correct. That's what we consider the rear lot line according to.
No, but of the ramada itself.
Oh, yes.
Where,
this is the ramada right here.
Right, but only that tiny little triangle really is what's causing the encroachment, correct?
Well, there's some of it would encroach into the south side
Oh,
area.
okay, yeah.
And then
so it's
you do have some right here in the rear.
So
this area between the red and the black dash line is,
right. Okay.
is the encroachment and what they're requesting as far as the reduction is concerned.
And even though it started out as a variance, the applicant decided that the variance criteria is much more difficult to meet.
Yes.
So
early on, we explained to them that staff would be hard. It'd be hard for us to support the variance request, and we tried to introduce some options for them to consider, and they chose to choose the use permit standards option and shifted the ramada to the north.
Okay, great. So this is like a perfect case for why we even have the use permit standard here in Tempe.
Okay.
So, okay, thanks. I have a good understanding. Is the property owner here, or is it Mr. Sherwood? Who's going to be? Go ahead and come on up.
I'm just the applicant for the owners.
Okay. And your name?
Josh Sherwood,
Okay, and your city of residence?
Gilbert.
Gilbert, Arizona?
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to what Mr. Jimenez said, or want to convey anything?
No, we've just been trying to work with them to get something that would work for both sides. Spent a lot of hours and meetings and paperwork and everything. So I think with Lee's help, we've come to a good, where we're able to move it a little bit to help us, and then also try to stay within the boundaries of the special use permit.
Okay.
Because of the retention too, that's, these lots are, you have to retain your own water. And so it became a little tricky to make everything work and still maintain enough retention on that lot.
Right.
So that's what we were trying to do.
Okay. Thank you. Have you read the conditions of approval in the staff report? There are 2 conditions of approval.
Yes.
You're going to get a building permit, I'm sure, since you've been talking with staff and talking
Correct.
about retention, and that this use permit pertains to the plan submitted with this application.
Correct.
Okay. So as long as you agree to those, I don't think I have any other questions for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public wishing to speak? Sir, if you'd like to come forward. And if you can just hand that speaker card to a staff member and then just say your name and city of residence.
Raveen Jain. I live in Tempe, Arizona. My house is directly west of the residence.
Okay.
And I guess I'm not aware of the new adjustments that they made, so I would like to get a copy of that. But basically, all I'm here is to say is we met with them and we welcomed them to the neighborhood, and we have lived there for 20 plus years. And so it's been a good neighborhood, and hopefully they will keep it so coming in and abide by all the city requirements and neighborhood requirements. That's
Okay.
all I want to say.
Thank you. Any other member of the public wishing to speak on agenda item number 4? I don't see anyone, so I'm going to go ahead and go through the use permit criteria. I have the same criteria as for a regular standalone use permit, but this process is called a use permit standard. This is something unique to the City of Tempe's code, and it allows a 20% reduction in a development standard, or in some development standards. So, and it's for this exact circumstance where someone's trying to build a structure, but they have an oddly configured yard with some pre-existing trees, or like the applicant said, retention that they're trying to deal with, and they need just a little bit of relief from the code without having to seek a variance. Variance criteria are pretty hard to meet, and so I think the applicant was given good advice. Staff couldn't support a variance, and so I'm happy that you guys worked together to come up with this solution. And again, this is exactly why we have this in our code. I'm going to go through the use permit criteria as I have in the other cases. I don't believe granting this use permit will create a significant increase in vehicular or pedestrian traffic. It will not create a nuisance arising from the emission of odor, dust, gas, noise, vibration, smoke, heat, or glare. I don't believe it will contribute to the deterioration of the neighborhood or downgrade property values. In fact, you're making a significant investment into the property, which I think is a good thing. It's compatible with existing surrounding structures and uses. These are all large lot, big homes on larger lots, so I think it's compatible there. And I believe you'll have adequate control of behavior both inside and outside the premises. Therefore, I'm going to approve the application PL 180142, located at 11640 South 71st Street. Thank you and good luck to you. That concludes our agenda this afternoon. Staff, do you have any announcements? No. Our next hearing is July 3rd, 2018. And if we don't have any announcements, I'm going to adjourn the hearing.